almost forgot it was summer. Back in Puebla, it didn't get very warm. I didn't have to use my air conditioning at all. Where I am now, it's 37 degrees Celsius, so it's pretty hot. Got my air conditioning going on. Turn down a bit, make it a bit quieter. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about, or give some very point-form thoughts about some of my experiences at the two Volkswagen factories that I went to. There are a couple of parallels in between them. The first thing I want to talk about is Volkswagen's Think Blue campaign, or mantra, if you want to call it that. Think Blue is not just engine technologies and lower emissions vehicles that get better fuel economy, although it is that too. Think Blue is manifesting itself in other very, very important ways. For example, you heard Scott Wilson talk about at the Chattanooga factory how they have white roofs that collect rainwater so that they can use that water for things inside the factory, like cooling the tips of the welding guns and using it to flush toilets and stuff like that. Well, in fact, they're actually doing that in Puebla as well. Back in 2010, very recently, Volkswagen invested about $1 billion in that factory to build the new Jetta. $600 million was dedicated towards designing the new Jetta, and $400 million was went towards building the actual factory. And other parallels they have are things like a wildlife reserve in a way. It's not quite as big as the one in Chattanooga, but it is there, and definitely a very important step in the right direction. Puebla is very interesting in that, now I don't know about Chattanooga, but in Puebla, they collect enough water to not only serve the factory, but enough to give back to the town as well, which I think is an incredible thing. You know, they use, both factories I believe use low pollution lighting. Low pollution lighting is basically light that doesn't disturb local habitat and wildlife. So basically it points directly down. It's not what they call dirty light. When I lived in Calgary, I remember them talking about the fact that Calgary has very dirty light. It's one of the only cities you can see from space. Calgary is very, very well lit, much better lit than Toronto, but the problem with Calgary's light is that it goes all over the place, so it's very, very intrusive to not only local wildlife, but you know, stargazing and other things of that nature. So they use very clean and very clean light at the factories. The other thing I wanted to talk about was in Puebla, an amazing thing from a cultural standpoint. In December, the birth of the Virgin Mary, I believe it's the 12th, but don't quote me on that, they have a huge festival, and they allow employees to bring all their families in. Now remember, these families can be very large. You're talking could be 12 to 15 people per employee. They can bring them in and they can see where they work and things like that, but they have a huge celebration. They bring in, of course, all sorts of Mexican food, but they also bring in German food to bring in the localization of Volkswagen in that city. And you're talking a huge, huge party, like 40, 50,000 people. And that's, I'm sure you can imagine, a very, very loud and raucous place. So that's awesome that they do that for the locals. And the other thing that's really cool, too, is that 9 years ago, they stopped building the original Beetle in Mexico. They call it the Vocho. And many families had an emotional attachment to that car because they all sort of grew up around the car. They grew up building the vehicle. They built it there for a very long time. So 9 years ago, they had a party, party's an understatement, but a huge sort of send-off for the Beetle. And many people remark that they cried at that. And, you know, there's a place they call, I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's something like the Hall of Tears, something in that nature. And basically it's where the Vocho used to be built. And people go there and reminisce and sometimes cry about it because it was such a major part of their life. So I think to have that sort of passion for a brand vehicle like that is just fantastic. I mean, you see this type of, a similar type of passion with Volkswagen enthusiasts in general. I think Volkswagen enthusiasts are very passionate about their cars, and I think the Beetle was really what started it all, so I think that's really awesome.